So when you first load the program, you're going to see this layout, unless you've already established a different layout because you've installed a previous version of the program. Uh, I don't like this layout. It's a little confusing, especially for teaching, because a lot of the layers are nested and stuff like that. I rather use the 2x3 layout, and actually I'm going to edit this a little bit, but let's start with this. I'll tell you what's on the screen. So you have over here, you have the scene window, and this will display all of the assets that you have in your game and their physical location relative to each other. Then you have down below, you have the game window. So this is what, when you actually run the game, what you will see. Okay. Then over here you have the hierarchy window. This shows you all of the objects in your game and all the assets and so forth. Then you have the project window here, which has a bunch of different folders, and you can add new folders to these, and we will be adding new folders. And this is where you can store and sort various assets such as scenes or sprites or scripts or materials, right? And then over here is Inspector, which shows you the details of a selected object. Like if I open this drop-down list in this sample scene, right now the only thing in the scene is the camera, the main camera. If I click on the main camera, I get the attributes of the camera over here in Inspector. Now, what I would rather do is, instead of having these three side by side, I'd rather have the project underneath the hierarchy. So I'm going to grab this tab and put it over here. You got to kind of get to look like that. And now it has project on top of hierarchy. I like to have hierarchy on top, so let me grab hierarchy now and do this. Oops, that didn't work. Let's try that again. So let's see here. Project, I'm going to drag it over onto hierarchy like that. And then if I drag hierarchy, maybe if I drag project down now. No, that didn't work. There, oh, there. If I drag it up just a little bit more so that it takes the full width, that should do it. Now I have hierarchy and project down below. Now I have this mouse drag control that I can do to resize this. I usually don't need as much space on this. I do want a little more space over here, and probably don't need that much space on Inspector. And then I can take this and put more space on my scene and game windows, which are the most important thing. Great. So now we need to, in our sample scene, we want to create a new scene. Create, oh wait, hold on. File, new scene. There we go. Now we can change the name of this scene. Save scene as. And we're going to call this Angry Trump. Great. Now we have a scene called Angry Trump. We are going to want to put some sprites in this scene, because we're going to make a two-dimensional game, and pretty much all two-dimensional pictures in games are rendered on sprites. So we want to add some sprites to our assets down here in our project file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder for those sprites. So I have a sprites folder now, and now you can see it's been added to the assets window. We're also going to add some materials. So let's make a folder called materials. And one more. I'm getting to this by right-clicking, called scripts. Okay, so I got the 3 S's and an M. I have scenes, scripts, sprites, and materials. Alright, so the first thing we need sprites. So this thing. Now, if you go to, I will send you a link. I'll put a link in the description of this video that will point you to a Google Drive. That'll probably have this as the link. And you're going to want to download all of these files as soon as they load. There we go. So this is some media that I made for this Angry Trump game. So download all of those. Let's see. How do I do that? I'm not going to download it. Alright, so once you downloaded them, find them in your computer. Alright, so here they are in my computer. And we want to just drag these from the Finder on into your sprites folder. So see how it highlights that folder? That's what you want to do. And then it will import all of those as assets. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is create a sprite to house the background. So let's create, up here you can click on the Create button and go down to 2D Object Sprite. And then we are going to grab over here where it says Sprite Renderer, Sprite None. You can either come down here in your Asset Sprite and find the file and drag it up to Sprite, or you can click on this little target icon here and it'll bring up a asset list that you can then select White House out of. Okay, so now I have this as the background. Then we need to add the sprite for the Trump. Oh, let's name this. So you can click twice on it slowly to bring up the name. So if I click on it once and then wait and then click on it a second time, now I can rename it background. Okay, now I'm going to make a new 2D sprite, and this time it's going to be the Trump sprite. Okay, we're going to move this. You can click over here to the move tool, and I'm going to move him over. I can scroll out and I can move him down. So I'm going to move him over to the edge. So this is the game window showed on the, and if I change the size of this, you can see that that white box here changes based on this, right? But when I go, if I click on maximize on play and I hit play, it will make it full screen when it plays, I think. Oh, it's beach balling. There we go. And if I go full screen, that's what you'll see in full screen. You can change this to change the aspect ratio, 16 by 9, 16 by 10, 16 by 9. Alright, so if I hit play again, it'll go out of full screen. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to adjust the background position. I want to move it up a little bit. See, if I move it up too high, you'll see the blue background. We want to move it down a little bit. Then we can grab Trump, move him up a little bit, move him over right to the edge of the screen there. All right, then let's name this by clicking twice. Then we're going to add another sprite, create 2D sprite. This is going to be the slingshot, and we want this to be slingshot 1. Wow! So this sprite is at a different resolution. So what you need to do is click on the sprite out of the assets in the project menu, find the sprite, and you want to adjust this pixels per unit. The default is 100. We're going to make this, I believe, 650. And then click down here on apply. Okay, and let's just go ahead and do this on this sprite as well. Change the pixels unit to 650 and apply. Okay, now we can move this where we want it. I'm going to put it somewhere in front of Trump because he's going to be flinging, instead of Angry Birds, he's going to be flinging lie speech bubbles that look like this. All right, so there's that piece. We need to add the other piece. This let's name it. This is Slingshot 1. And we need to add now we are going to create this other slingshot as a child object of the first slingshot, and you can do that automatically by highlighting it when you create it. 2D object sprite, and now we want to grab this slingshot 2 and what happened? Oh, slingshot 1, sorry. So new sprite. This is going to be called slingshot 2. And just use slingshot 2. There we go. And if yours ended up huge, it's because you didn't change its pixels per unit to 650. Alright, so now we need to line this up. Now, when we render, we're going to render in real time the strings, the rubber bands coming from this slingshot, and they want to make it attached to something convenient. It helps to put the anchor point right at where these brown things are, because that's where we're going to render the lines when we have this catapult. So we can do that by you click on, let's see. Oh, and I wanted this slingshot 2 to be a child of slingshot 1. You can drag it so that it highlights over it, and now these are paired together. If I move this one, then they'll move both of them as a unit. Okay? Alright, so what I need to do now is right, I was going to edit the sprite so that I can change the point, the insertion point. But I don't see the edit. Do I have to go down here? Okay, yeah, I guess I do. Alright, so I click on the sprites down here in the asset in the project, and then I can click on sprite editor. And now bring this up. And then you see this little ring. We're going to move that to like in the middle of this. That's its like pivot point, and we'll be able to snap to that when we render a line. So up here, click apply. And you can close. And now this one, sprite editor. Drag this pivot point to here and click apply. This is going to change where they are on the screen down here. So we'll have to now go back and adjust these. So close this. Alright, so let's go back and readjust these. Move this one up. It's still a child, so it moves the other one with it. I can just select that, move it back. I can zoom in by scrolling with my mouse. Good enough. All right. Now, we need to add units to this. So we're going to need to add a line renderer to each of these things, because there's going to be a line that goes from here down to where the lie bomb is, and from here down to where the lie bomb is. So we want to add component. Whoops, I'm on the wrong object. I want to make sure I'm on Slingshot. Add component, and it's under effects, line renderer, effects, line renderer. Okay, then just leave this alone. Down here, width, it'll make the line really, really thick if you leave it at 1. I'm going to put it at 0.3. And then you can actually have it vary, so it's thicker at the base and thinner at the end where Trump is pulling on it. So it kind of gets thinner as it stretches, and you can do that by adding a control point over here by double clicking and then pulling it down. So we'll have it go from 3 to like 0.15 or something. Okay, line renderer. We need to do the same thing on this one. Add component, effects, line renderer. Change this to 0.3. Add a control point. Drag the control point down. Okay. Then we are going to want to create a material for this, because otherwise it's bright pink by default, and that would be terrible. So we want to create a material. So let's go to our materials folder and go to create and go down here to material. This will create you a new material. We want to rename this. Let's call it strings. Okay. Now, because we're dealing with sprites, and this is originally rendered with a shader in OpenGL, and that 3D language of OpenGL conflicts with the sprites, and you get layering issues where you don't see the strings. You have to change this shader model from standard to sprites default. Okay. Then you can change the color here under tint. So click on this. I'm going to click on the little medicine dropper, which will bring up a super zoomed in pixel by pixel view, which you can put anywhere on your screen and pick a color. I'm going to pick this brown color. Okay, so that's all we need from that. Close that. Okay, then we need to add, we got the slingshot, we have the Trump, we need to add the lie. So let's add another 2D sprite, and we want to, let's just click on the target here, and over here we're going to bring up lies. Now, why don't you see the lies? It has to do with ordering layer. Ordering layer 2. See? By default, it's set on 0. The background is also set on 0, so it becomes kind of a crapshoot as to what gets rendered. Okay? So there's that. That looks a little big, so let's adjust this. So go back into your sprites and come down to lies and pixels per unit. Let's change this from 100 to 200. Apply. Yeah, that looks about right. All right, so we want to have enough room to have the lies in front of Donald and then the slingshot. So we're going to need to move the slingshot over a little bit. Make sure I have slingshot selected. Let's go like that. Okay, and then let's take the lies. Oh, new sprite. I got to rename this. So let's call this lie. I can move this. You know, it still looks a little big. Let's make it a little smaller. What does 300 look like? Yeah, let's go with that. All right, so I'm going to move this down. All right, now we need to, this is going to move, so we need to add a, and we want this to be able to knock things down, so we need to add a collider to it, and then we also need it to have a rigid body so that it will be affected by gravity. So have lie selected, and we need to add component to physics 2D circle collider. There are other types of colliders, including a polygon collider, which would more closely match the shape of this. You could even have it like match this little point. But the script I'm using relies on circle collider, so make sure you use a circle collider for this. All right, circle collider, add component, and we're going to need a physics 2D, and it's a rigid body 2D. Okay, we want to change this rigid body at first to from dynamic, meaning that it's affected by gravity, to kinematic, meaning it is locked in place. This will be changed by the script. So it will start off locked in place. As soon as you grab it, then the script will change it from kinematic to dynamic and start rendering those lines. All right, so we've got that rigid body. We want to, in the circle collider, we want to add a physics material that affects the friction and bounciness of this. So we need to create that material. So go back into materials, down here in your project folder, and go to create. And we are going to create down here physics material 2D. Physics material 2D. Okay, let's call this friction. Okay, click on it, and it gives you friction and bounciness. So let's make the friction like 20. This doesn't have to do with how fast it flies through the air. This is friction when it comes in contact with the ground plane or some other object. Bounciness, this is a number that goes really between, if you had 1, then it would bounce with the same force that you dropped it. If you had 2, excuse me, if you had 2, it would bounce with double the force that you dropped it. We're going to do something like 0.25, so that it has a quarter of the force every time it bounces. Okay? Then we need to apply this friction material to the circle collider. So here under material, we want to add friction to this. Okay. Next, we need to create the ground plane. All right, so we are going to add a box collider to the background, or we're gonna add a let's see. Oh, so we just want to click on background and add component. And go down to physics 2D. And it's actually a edge collider 2D. Yeah, edge collider. And if you look closely, it's kind of hard to see. So you can navigate around this screen by, you can either zoom in and then kind of hover over here and zoom out and then kind of hover in a different place and zoom in. That's one way of doing it. Or you can zoom in and use the arrow keys, which is probably the better way of doing it. So anyway, if I have the background highlighted, you can see this green line, this faint green line. Whoops, background highlighted. That is the ground plane, at least where it is right now, the edge collider. We need to change this. So you want to click on points, actually, and set this from negative 9.6 to positive 9.6. Y00, we need to figure out what the Y values need to be to put this down at the bottom. Let's try negative 2. And so look, that only brings one side down. Negative 4. Negative 5. Negative 6, that's too far. Okay, negative 5.5 is too far. 5.3. 5.4. That looks good. Alright, so then if I also put negative 5.4 over here, you'll have a straight line that goes all the way across that any rigid body will stop when it hits, when it encounters. Now, is this line long enough? It's hard to see where it ends. Yeah, it looks like it's going all the way across the base of the thing. Cool. Alright, so now if we were, let me show you how the gravity system works. So if on this lie object, if I were to take off kinematic and change it to dynamic, and we hit play, you'll see there we go, hold on. You'll see the lie bubble will fall down and hit the ground. Maybe. My performance is much better when I'm not screen recording. Is it going to work? Hello, there we go. See, there it fell. Right now I can't click on it, I can't do anything because we haven't scripted any mouse interactions yet. So it just falls and that's it right now. Okay, cool. So the next thing we actually need to do is create a script so that we can actually connect the lines from the slingshot to the lie bomb, and also actually grab the lie bomb with our mouse and make it move. Oh, there's one other thing we need to add in the lie, and that is a physics 2D, a spring joint 2D. And you need that so that you can so that it'll actually have a catapult. That's what actually propels the object. So there's a few things you want to change here. First of all, you want this distance to be as close to 0 as it'll let you, which if you type 0, I think it'll, whoops, it's not even letting me do that. I think, click on auto configure distance, uncheck that. We don't want to have this auto configured. We want to put this as close to 0 as it'll let us, which is actually like 0.005. The most springiness in the catapult. Okay, we're going to add a slight dampening ratio just to make the ball go a little bit slower, since we're not going to scroll across a really long way the way Angry Birds does. Let's do a ratio of 0.2 for now. We're going to leave everything else the same. Oh, connected rigid body. We want to select, let's see. No, maybe you don't need that. No, it's got to be, you connect the, it's got to be, okay, it's got to be this. That's material, okay. Connected rigid body. This should be the slingshot, but I don't see slingshot in here, and you don't want to connect it to itself. So hold on, let's see. What if I grab slingshot? Whoops. Grab slingshot and drag it down here. Does that let me? No. Okay, 1 second. So I know there's a way to attach it here, and then when you do that, it actually snaps to those things. Oh, there's no rigid body in them, that's why. Okay, so we need to add a rigid body to just this. Add component, physics 2D, rigid body, and you want to make that rigid body be kinematic. That one will never change. It's always going to be kinematic. All right. So now on this, we can say connected rigid body, and we want to say slingshot 1. Then drag, that's not what we want to do. Hold on, there we go. Now they snap to the pivot points that we've set. And I'm going to do it to the further pivot point. Okay, so then the spring will move, will pull it there as fast as it can. Okay, so now we finally are ready to actually put the script in here. So we want to click on our scripts folder down here in the project window, and you go create C# script. And we're going to call this drag bird, all one word with capital D and B. G-R-A-G, capital B-I-R-D, drag bird. Because this is from a Angry Birds style game. Okay, so then we will need to edit this. We're going to double click on it. Hold on, what's going on? Okay, we're going to edit this by double clicking on it. And that is going to launch Visual Studio. Now, if Visual Studio pops up with a update screen, don't update. I did that and it broke my Visual Studio and I had to reinstall everything. So don't update your Visual Studio. Okay. Visual Studio should launch. There it is. It's loading. My computer goes really slow just because I'm screen sharing with y'all. So still loading. And there it is. All right, so this is the C# file. So the main downside about, or at least the most difficult thing about Unity, is that you're creating interactions between keyboard, mouse, and your virtual objects. You either have to write your own C# code, which is it's a pretty steep learning curve, or you download somebody else's C# code and modify it to work with yours, which is kind of what I did today, or you stick to pre-built assets that you download from the asset store, which is fairly limiting for what we want to do. Like, you can totally make platform games, like little jump games, just by using the pre-built assets and changing the artwork around. But if you want to do something really creative, you got to be able to either write your own code or at least edit somebody else's code. I'm still learning to write this code. It is tough. It is very tough. But I now have enough of a handle that I can pretty much edit somebody else's code. So what I'm going to do is we're going to delete everything in here. And we're going to open that code that we downloaded. Which is a CS file. And it looks like this. Let's see, scripts, bird CS. So if you don't have a program that wants to open this .cs, dragbird.cs file, you can always open it with TextEdit. It's just a text file. We're going to grab everything in here, copy, close, and we're going to paste it in here. Okay? Then hit play to make sure there aren't any compile errors. And if there were any errors, you should see down here, and there aren't. So it's looking good. So we can stop it, and we can save it. And close it. Okay, go back into Unity. You'll see now that all that code is here. Let me show you kind of what the code is. All right, so what we have here, first we're using system collections, which is a bunch of the built-in assets. We're creating a public class called DragBird, and that loads the mono behavior assets. We are defining some variables. We are using, here's where we call the line renderer for the string back and string front. We have the joint 2D. We have booleans about whether it's clicked or not. We have the whole like radius. So basically what happens is when it starts, first thing that happens is get component spring joint 2D slingshot equals spring connected body transform. So, oh, sorry, that's an awake function that's being defined. This is what actually happens when it starts. You run a program called string setup, which is defined down here. String setup, right? So you run string setup, then you do ray casting between the slingshot position and the transform position, which is where your mouse is. So you figure out what that ray is, and then you use that ray to engage the line renderer. And let's see, when you first start, I have the string backs and fronts disabled so that you don't get that until you actually click on the word bubble. When it's clicked, if click start the dragging program. Dragging program is defined down here. It is it first of all enables that back and front string. Then it creates a vector, and it takes the mouse position minus the slingshot position. And if you let go of the mouse, it sends some things around. I'm sorry, I don't know this code very well. But the idea is I know enough of it that I can change some things. Like it originally was showing the strings all the time, so I added this string enabled false on the void start to help with that. Anyway, and I also had to do some debugging and change some things, but I'm not going to go through those with you. All right. Unity. Okay, so we need to, now that we have that script, we are going to add the script to the lie bomb. So we want to click on this, and we are going to go down here to add component. Actually, we can just grab this and drag it onto the lie, and then it should add it to the bottom. Yep, there it is. Okay, so let's try this out now. If I hit play, it's going to take a long time to load like last time. Hey, there it goes. Let's try that again. I didn't even get to click my... Oh, did I forget? I think I forgot to change its kinematicness. I think I set it to be dynamic at the very beginning, which is probably why it's... Yeah, okay, I know what's wrong. So to demonstrate it, remember I set this rigid body as dynamic. We want this actually to start out as kinematic. So whenever you make changes, make sure you're not in play mode or else it won't save your changes. Alright, so I can grab on it, and there we go. So the only thing that's wrong right now is it's not rendering the lines correctly, and I think I know why. It's because we want to set up a specific rendering group called Trumpy, which is what is in the code in the scripts. There's something here that actually references Trumpy right here. So it talks about a sorting order and sorting layer. Trumpy, we need to create a sorting layer called Trumpy, and we need to put all of our sprites in an order that makes sense for that layer for this to work. So background, we want to change the sorting layer to add sorting layer. Go over here to the plus symbol, and it's Trumpy with a capital T, Trumpy. Okay, so you can then click off of it and click back on background. Now you can go into sorting layer, change that to Trumpy, and Now everything got disappeared because they're not in the same sorting layer. We're going to leave the background as 0. Let's go to Trump now and add him to this sorting layer. Sorting layer Trumpy. We want him on layer 1, order of 1 in this layer. Then we need to go to Slingshot and Trumpy. And we want this to be layer 2. Okay, and then Slingshot 2, we actually want this also to be on Trumpy, and we want this to actually be layer 3, so that way the lies pass between the two sticks. Okay, and then we will need to click on lie, and we need to send that one also to Trumpy, and we want this to be layer 2. So let's try it now. Play. Well, I still don't have the render correct, so I gotta figure out what's wrong with that. Here it is. So down here on Dragbird script, string back, line renderer, none, and line string back and string front. We have to for that. So why don't I just click on this target, and I want this to be Slingshot 1, and click on this target and Slingshot 2. All right, let's try it again. This stretch limit, I know that I want to adjust as well. Hey, there we go. All right, so there's something wrong. The lines are still pink, and they're not letting us stretch it very far. All right, so let's go back. We're almost there, though. The materials don't seem like they're getting applied. So let's see. First things first, down here, stretch limit. I think we should make that more like 3. And now Slingshot. Did we ever apply the material to this? Line renderer materials. We did not. So under the line renderer, if you click on the next to materials and element 0, we want to click on this and add the strings material to that. And click on the other one, Slingshot, element 0, click the target, and we're going to add the strings material to that as well. And now let's try this one more time. Come on, baby. So slow. All right. Hey, there we go. So there's a bit of a bug that you see that the strings like pass the thing. I haven't really figured out how to fix that yet. I'll leave that to you guys. Woo! So there's also not a way to reset the game right now. We could probably program a UI, and to do that, I'm not going to do that just to save time for now. The only way to start and stop the game is to hit the play button. All right, so the only thing we need now are some targets to knock down. And I'm going to do this really quickly, and you follow along. So I'm going to create a new 2D object sprite, and this is going to be the base And we are going to add in a sprite. This will be the courthouse base. We need to change this to the Trumpy sorting layer. Put this as layer 2. Actually, we only need it to be layer 1, but it's way too big, so let's go back to the sprites and find the courthouse. Change the pixels per unit to 250 maybe. Let's try that. Let's make it 200. I'm gonna make it 150 because there's some text on these, and if we make it too small, it'll be hard to read the text. Great, that looks good. All right, so let's now on this base we want to add a collider to it. We don't need a kinematic body because it's not going to be affected by gravity. It's just going to sit on the ground. But we do need to add a collider. So add component physics 2D collider. We can use a polygon collider, and it will attempt to fit a polygon to this. I'm going to move this over here. Like that. And it didn't do the polygon fitting perfectly, but we can go over here to edit collider, and I can fix this fairly simply. I'm just going to have it follow the diagonal of these steps. I'm not going to have it trace every single step. And over here, whoops, scroll, arrow key. Move this to like there. And that looks pretty good. Okay, let's leave that. And now we want to make a new create 2D sprite. And this is going to be, oh, let's go ahead. These are all the same scale. Let's go ahead and just change them all to the 150. 150, apply. And I didn't even need that one. 150, apply. You know what? We can do all of them at once. Watch this. Select, Shift, select, and now go over here to 150, apply. All right. So new sprite. Let's add that in there. This is going to be the column 1. And we want this on Trumpy. Layer 2 or layer 1. Right. Move this up. And over. We want to attach a rigid body to this. And also a collider. And let's just, we'll use a polygon collider, and it makes it perfectly. All right, so now we have this one. This is a column. Column 1. Let's duplicate this, which you can do by doing Control D. So we have column 1, column 2, column 3, in column 4. And now all we have to do is move these individually. Close enough. And now we just need to add the roof. Oh, we need to change. Right now they all say the same thing, national security. We can change the sprite on each of these to match the different messages. Women's rights. Exceptionalism. And wait, that's a sprite. Sorry, that's a material. We really want to change this. There we go. 4. Democracy. All right, so now let's add the roof. Sprites. One more. Create 2D object sprite. And add the roof. We want this on Trumpy layer 1. Let's put it up here. All right, we want this to sit right on it, but not in it. Something like that. There we go. Perfect. Now we need to add a 2D, a polygon collider, and it looks like it drew it perfectly. All right, and then add component, physics 2D, and a rigid body. All right, I think we're ready to go. Yay! It works. Great.